Welcome, beloved sibling. I am sciencey comedian Aaron Freeman. My partner is University of Chicago neurobiology professor Peggy Mason, and this is the Chicago Society for Neuroscience's Brain Buddies podcast. In this episode, we will look at some of the neurobiology underlying Chicago Public Radio's ongoing project, Every Other Hour, a reference to the fact that in Chicago, someone is shot every other hour. Specifically, we're going to talk about an episode of the project called When Shooting is Like a Drug by reporter Rob Wildeboer. In it, Rob talked to a former gang member, now just normal gun-toting citizen. The broadcast begins with the anonymous shooter's description of a recent incident.
Late night, leaving my lady friend's house, and as I came out, there was a suspicious guy just standing outside. And then he asked me to use my phone, so I let him use the phone, and then he was just like going out of his way to make extra conversation. So once he did that, you know what I'm saying, that was like all the signals of this ain't right.
So what happens in your brain when you perceive an encroachment on your environment?
Then you're into this situation where you've detected danger. And now that entire circuitry, which is going to alert the amygdala. This amygdala is the social center. Amygdala is a small part of the telencephalon. It's at the front end of the temporal lobe. It's right in front of the hippocampus. It has an almond shape, which is why it's called amygdala.
An area of your brain.
Yeah, and it's on. You have two amygdalas, one on either side, and it gets all this information. It gets hearing information, visual information, smell, taste, the feeling of your own body, etc. And then it figures out what the heck that means in a social kind of context. Okay, there are other places where you're figuring out in a different context, in a self context. But the social coordinator is the amygdala. And the amygdala is going to learn during childhood how to interpret different social situations. So the social situations that an individual grows up in are what is going to train the amygdala.
So in this young man's environment, when he has been trained and habituated over time to interpret this unusual pattern of sounds coming from someone talking on the phone as a threat, and his little amygdala...
that would be the guess.
Yeah,
that
would be
my guess.
Of course, we haven't talked to this guy,
right.
We don't know, but that's what it sounds like.
Right.
So his amygdala is aroused, and then what happens in his brain?
So the amygdala is going to activate a whole bunch of different things, such as a motivation and affect.
So is it, I have understood it or think I've heard, that the amygdala adds the kind of emotional import to whatever you are observing. So when our guy hears the other guy talking in an exaggeratedly conversational way, his amygdala is involved in the, oh, this is really something bad and I better take some action reaction.
It is. It has a helper in the accumbens. So, for example, the same stimulus might be positive or negative. The amygdala somehow gets all this information, and with help from the accumbens is going to interpret it as either something that it wants to go towards or something that it wants to avoid, and then execute the necessary behaviors to make that avoidance or approach happen.
But arousal is not just for amygdalas anymore. There's also, right, a neurohormonal pathway.
Hypothalamo-pituitary adrenal axis, the HPA axis, right, which is part and parcel of making you ready to mount this big activity. Getting the heart rate, getting the blood pressure, getting the blood shifted from your guts to your skeletal muscles, etc.
I mention this because this is a good, useful, survival-related stress reaction, because it is that activation of shifting blood flow to your legs, diminishing activation in your digestive system. You do this so that you can escape the leopard that's coming to attack. Our ape ancestors' bodies were prepared when they identified the leopard as a threat. This HPA axis got their bodies ready to run.
Right.
To escape. But we can imagine that is what was happening in the body of that young man when he hears what sounds to him like a danger signaling phone call.
Right. One of the things that has come out of late is that the amygdala is very implicated in the condition of post-traumatic stress disorder. And in post-traumatic stress disorder, a sensory cue that normally would not evoke a big reaction now evokes this huge reaction. That is how we define hypervigilance. And it is thought that it's the amygdala that's responsible for that.
In Rob Wildeboer's piece on WBEZ, the young man also talked about his attraction to violence.
I enjoyed it. You know what I'm saying? Anytime some type of shooting had over, man, I'm going. Ain't no little brother, you can't. No, I'm going too. Y'all going to do a hit? I'm going too. Even if I'm just standing on security, I want to go. It was just, man, it's like a drug. You get addicted.
There's some pretty intense neurobiology having to do with addiction and drug-seeking behavior.
At the root of neurobiology, at the root of the nervous system, is movement. So the original question, as my friend Don Pfaff has always said, what got him into neurobiology is, why do anything? Why do anything? Okay? Why not just sit as a lump for the rest of your life? Well, the reason is because you need some food, you need some water, you need blah, blah, blah. And you have these various drives to explore, etc. Why do anything? Well, the fact of the matter is that the way we are constructed, at least vertebrates, mammals, is that we have this area that says, after the fact, oh, that was good, I like that, I want to do that again. We have what I would call a craving area. In the case of this young man, I listened to him talking about his experiences, and it wasn't clear to me whether what he craved was the fellowship with his comrades or whether he craved the actual shooting. That's where humans get very, very complicated.
Would there be a difference in the neuropharmacology of a desire to go out on a shooting run to be with your friends and the desire to participate in the shooting? Are there different areas of the brain activated?
Personally, I think it stands to reason that a desire to be with your friends and be accepted by your friends and to have camaraderie, an affiliative desire, is a very different desire than the desire to injure another individual. From his description, I felt that he was very desirous of that camaraderie. And the way he got it was by shooting.
How close can we come to describing the neurobiology of that desire to go out with your buddies and do a thing?
A great deal of our understanding of affiliation has come from pair bonding, from looking at pair bonding between, say, voles that are monogamous, that either mate for life or are completely polygamous and mate here and there. And not a lot of it is how do two rats become buddies. We don't really have a great model for two rats hanging out and being buddies, or five rats hanging out and being buddies.
As I recall, the prairie vole bonding is very strongly influenced by the presence of oxytocin in the female.
Oxytocin and vasopressin are the two major players in pair bonding in the vole. They probably have an effect in humans too. It's still somewhat controversial, but there are many that would say that it has an effect. That if you give, for example, intranasal oxytocin to humans, it increases their affiliative behavior. Personally, I have my doubts that it's quite that simple.
What you're just saying is really interesting, because this is something that we've all known for a long time, that the reason soldiers fight in the battlefield, they're not fighting for their country, they're not fighting for their leader, they're not fighting for their flag, they're fighting for their buddies. They're fighting for the men in their unit. They will risk their lives, sacrifice their lives for the guys in the unit.
Absolutely. So I personally, I didn't find him convincingly psychopathic. I didn't find him convincingly aggressive for the sake of aggression. He wanted to be accepted and loved.
That's what I think. This is what's so amazing. What you were saying is, I think, is that one of the things that made the seeking of violence feel like a drug to this guy was, for lack of a better term, love.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you didn't hear him saying, oh, I really love to see the blood. I loved watching him crumple to the ground. He didn't say anything like that. He talked about his friends.
Which of course,
That's what he
some
talked
people
about.
do. We do have a fascination with the macabre, and little boys like to pull the legs off spiders. But you didn't see any of that in his piece. This guy, you're absolutely right.
I didn't hear any of it.
Right?
Did you hear any of it?
No. He talked about but whenever they wanted to go out, whenever his friends were going out to go and do some action, he wanted to be a part of that. And he wanted to be a part of that group. That's so interesting. Right. Okay, so now what do we know? And so the neurobiology of that has to do with bonding. What we know.
Well, the neurobiology of that is critical. The being a social individual, which I would define as being affected by the presence or absence of others, is what you're going to, Aaron, today, is what you're going to do affected by what others do?
Absolutely.
Or would you do, absolutely, right?
No question.
You cannot even conceive of a day which would be the same regardless of the presence or absence of Sharon or the presence or absence of friends. You can't conceive of a non-social existence. We are social individuals. And what does it get you? It gets you a lot. It gets you information that now you don't have to take all the information in directly. You can get information from these affiliative partners. You have friends. So they know that a danger is coming. They know that a storm is coming. They know that predators are coming. They know a really good place to go eat. And so you can get better food. You have more access to food, etc. The benefits of having a friend, an affiliative partner, are myriad. You've now expanded your antennae, right? You have now antenna.
Not only that, what you remind me of is Yelp. I've read recently that people are more likely to make a purchase decision that has been endorsed by friends and neighbors than they are by experts. That the social context is more salient to us.
That is such a good point. I mean, when I go to purchase something online, I don't look at the specs. I look at the reviews.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, so this is, again, one of the points that I was talking to Rob Wildeboer about, which is that as I look at the data, maybe the best predictor of the risk of violence is zip code. That there are, when you look at the maps of Chicago and you see where the homicide rates are high, you're looking at like Englewood and Austin Lawndale. But the cultural context, the social context, is really obviously important. And
absolutely. For example, in chimps, there is culture. I mean, that's been a really exciting finding over the years.
And a funny concept of chimpanzee cultures. Yeah, chimpanzee
they have culture. They have customs that are passed on non-genetically and that spread between communities.
So the point you're making is that aggression is a biological phenomenon that is visible from at least as low in the evolutionary timeline as lobsters, and continues to be a measurable biological phenomenon all the way up through neuroscience professors. that this is biology, and
absolutely,
and one of the things,
it's definitely biology.
And one of the things that I like about the notion is that if it is biology, which it is biology, there's no particular room for morality.
I think that one of the big conclusions that I've come to over time is that our neuroscience is so constrained that morality in the sense of culpability is not a particularly useful exercise. Morality in the sense of what is right for us as a culture or not is very important. But as a guide to what we should hold people culpable, guilty of, that's less compelling.
Well, this is like what psychologist Roy Baumeister talks about, the myth of pure evil. That in a neurobiological sense, there's really not a place for that hypothesis of pure evil. Thank you immensely much for listening. Okay, we admit it, Peggy and I are soldiers in the war against the notion of free will. How about you? Do you believe that biology trumps morality? We'd sure love to hear your thoughts about that. You can leave a comment below. We've also provided a link to Rob Wildeboer's excellent report, When Shooting is Like a Drug. We also heartily invite you to check out the Chicago Society for Neuroscience's website, chicagosfn.org. Don't miss Peggy's excellent blog, The Brain is So Cool, or my YouTube channel, neurosciencecomedy.com. Until next time, may your oxytocin flow like the river of Chicago, and may your amygdalas tingle in anticipation of the stupendous opportunities available on this, the best day of your life. We are Aaron Freeman and Professor Peggy Mason, and you've been listening to the Brain Buddies Podcast.